You're listening to the Telltale channel. Don't forget to check me out on all social media: Patreon, Twitter, Teespring, and Etsy. All links can be found in the description or on my website, telltaleatheist.com. Next article I wanted to take a look at is called Jehovah's Witness Gets 6+ Years in Jail for What Shouldn't Ever Be a Crime. This is by Terry Firma on The Friendly Atheist. Let's read this article and see what it says here. Russia continues to lay trumped-up charges against Jehovah's Witnesses and jailing some as an apparent warning to others. I have no love for that faith or any other, but this is dark, disturbing stuff. Here's a quote. A court in Pskov in northern European Russia handed 61-year-old Gennady Shpakovsky the longest jail sentence given to a Jehovah's Witness after the 2017 Supreme Court ban on Jehovah's Witness activity. 6.5 years imprisonment in a general regime labor camp, correctional colony, quote-unquote. This is the second longest jail term yet handed down on extremism-related charges, from meeting with others to pray and study beliefs. That is extremely disturbing. So here's the controversy. This is a really big deal in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community. Do you believe in freedom of religion or no? Do you think that Jehovah's Witnesses should be allowed to practice their religion or no? A few years ago, it was a really big controversial thing. I came out in support of Jehovah's Witnesses who wanted to practice their religion. I got attacked by a lot of people for that stance. Lloyd Evans held that position too. Freedom of religion is a fundamental right, and the ends do not justify the means. Cults believe the ends justify the means. That's one of the hallmarks of a cult. They believe that the ends justify the means. We can't be like that. We have to be better than that if we want to fight extremism. We can't turn into extremists ourselves. So anyways, that was an extremely controversial position that I held a while back, that I don't think that Jehovah's Witnesses should be jailed for practicing their beliefs. Let's continue reading this and see what it says. Well, I guess that formally, Shpakovsky did more than gather with others to pray and study. The man was found to possess 2 small jars of donations to the church. According to his lawyer, Arly Chimarov, they contained the equivalent of about $6. The prosecutors considered that evidence of conspiracy and financing. The allegation was supported by the FSB, the Federal Security Service, the successor to the KGB. Oh, wow. I assume that's like the FBI, basically. Its agents claimed that the Jehovah's Witnesses are building a world theocratic state. That's fascinating. And partially true, I guess. You could say that's probably partially true, but I think that they're worried over a hill of bananas. Let's continue reading. 1 jar of pocket change at a time, apparently. In April 2017, the Jehovah's Witnesses were banned by Russia's Supreme Court, with the justices ruling that the Watchtower tribe promotes extremism. Citizens found to belong to the organization face 6 to 10 years in jail. Thankfully, not everyone turns a blind eye, and moral support is offered from 1 or 2 high places. Last month, this is a quote, the United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention adopted a wide-ranging opinion condemning the raids, arrests, detention, and trials of 18 Jehovah's Witnesses, stating it wishes to emphasize that none of them should have been arrested and held in pretrial detention, and no trial of any of them should take or should have taken place. Beyond those 18, there are dozens more Jehovah's Witness adherents awaiting trial in Russia. Human Rights Watch reported in January that at least 313 people are facing charges, are on trial, or have been convicted of criminal extremism, quote-unquote, for engaging in Jehovah's Witnesses activities or suspects in such cases. About 2/3 of them found out about their status as suspect or accused in 2019. Authorities have carried out at least 780 house raids since 2017 in more than 70 towns and cities across Russia, more than half of them in 2019. Courts convicted 18 people in 2019, 9 of whom received prison sentences ranging from 2 to 6 years for such activities as leading or participating in prayer meetings. You're bordering on thought crime here. The only reason that this isn't considered a thought crime is technically Russia says you're allowed to think it, but the moment you show any outward sign that you think it, you're going to be imprisoned for it. You just cannot justify this as far as I'm concerned. The ends cannot justify the means. You can't do whatever it takes to win this battle. You have to respect people's human rights in the process. I said this in the last podcast, I think, or I said this recently, in case people didn't hear this. Back in the 80s and the 90s, when you were dealing with cult deprogrammers, it was a different world. Cult deprogramming used to be something very different. It used to be you would hire these deprogrammers to basically kidnap a cult member, bring them to a cabin in the woods and tie them up, not let them leave, and you'd sit there and deprogram them by force. It had a really high success rate, but you were violating their human rights to do it. It's not ethical. It's wrong. We can't resort to cult tactics to solve cult problems. We can't do it. It's wrong. Russia is violating human rights by doing this. I cannot accept this. People have the right to gather, to assemble peacefully and talk about their feelings and their beliefs. The moment you ban that is the moment you start taking human rights away. Things that should be given when you're born. Let's continue reading this. This is Terry Firma speaking. I can't say I get it. If individual Jehovah's Witnesses are guilty of actual crimes and misdemeanors, fraud, sedition, refusal to serve, what have you, then why not prosecute and punish them under the same laws that apply to everyone else? By the way, Russia's population is 144 million. Oh, that's an interesting number, like 144,000. Before the 2017 ban, the country had about 175,000 Jehovah's Witnesses. That's just over 0.12% of the total populace. As a result of the state's crackdown, that number must have decreased, in part because some Jehovah's Witnesses have fled the country. Can a handful of people meeting peacefully to read their insane holy texts really undermine a state as mighty as Vladimir Putin's? There's something else to make note of here. Jehovah's Witnesses have been banned in China for like a long time. Like all religions been banned in China for a long time, not just extremist ones. And Jehovah's Witnesses have found ways of operating within the state without basically getting caught and arrested and sentenced to jail. They do from time to time, but Jehovah's Witnesses do still send missionaries to China, even though it's banned there. They still do. I feel like if Jehovah's Witnesses were just blending into society seamlessly and not passing around donations and stuff like that, like don't pass around any donations, don't meet publicly, just get on an encrypted chat, like on some app, like Telegram, I think is end-to-end encryption or something. Get on there in a little group and hold your meetings through that. Problem solved. Instead, the Jehovah's Witnesses seem to want to like make a big deal out of it, and it does feed their persecution complex heavily. Like they're obsessed with being persecuted. They want to be persecuted. It's almost weird. It is weird. It's straight up strange. But they could do this in such a way that wouldn't lead to persecution. So I'm really not sure why they're doing it the ass backwards way. Either way, Russia's doing the wrong thing, bottom line. I agree with Terry Firma here. They're doing the wrong thing. Completely. Let's continue reading. This is what Terry Firma says. I can maybe see cracking down on open proselytizing, though I'm pleased that would never fly in the U.S., where we're all protected by the First Amendment. But wholesale repression of the sort the Russian state has been pursuing for the last 3 years sure looks like an awful, completely condemnable human rights violation to me. 100% agree with you on that, Terry. As I noted 2 years ago, other countries where Jehovah's Witnesses have been banned include Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and China. Collectively, a rogues gallery of illiberalism and oppression. Yep. I think Yemen may be one of them also. One bright point is that convicted Jehovah's Witnesses in Russia have some legal recourse, at least in scattered cases. In March, a court in Penza, about 340 miles southeast of Moscow, overturned the verdicts against 6 Jehovah's Witnesses who'd been jailed on charges of extremism. This is a complicated situation. Does it work? Yeah, you're going to get Jehovah's Witnesses out of Russia. It works. You're not going to get them out of the world. They're going to continue existing, and the moment you allow them back into the country, they're going to come. But you will eradicate Jehovah's Witnesses from the country basically completely. It's the wrong thing to do. You are violating human rights by doing this. I cannot harp on this enough, and I hate to see anybody's human rights violated. Terry Firma here said, I can maybe see cracking down on open proselytizing, though I'm pleased that it would never fly in the U.S., where we're all protected by the First Amendment. I don't really feel like we're protected by the First Amendment anymore. On paper we are, but in practice, not really. Not anymore. With the police situation going on in the U.S. at this moment, we're really not. We really don't have a First Amendment right at this immediate moment. That may just be because of the president, but he's putting an awful lot of his judges, loyal to him specifically, in power right now. So constitutionally, we have that protection. In practice, we do not.